our worldview of English language. Especially, we will be discussing of a Kachru's model in this section of this class. And we have learned the historical background of English language. We have also learned the origin of American English, Australian English, South Asian English, and others. Today we will be discussing on the scenario of English language. What is the scenario of English language all over the world? As the title shows, that a worldview of English language. English has become the global language mainly for two reasons. That is the British colonial power that was spreaded from the beginning of the 16th or 17th century, and that go up to the apex of colonial regime towards the end of the 19th century. And another reason is that the emergence of United States as the leading economic power of the 20th century. We have learned a little bit about that the language of a country will get dominance over other minority languages for the cause of economic power and the military power. United States in this regard has become the leading economic as well as the military power of this world. And United States of America is the largest English speaking country, largest in this sense, in geographical sense, and also in the sense of the population, that the number of population in the USA, and their first language is English. So that these are the two reasons of making English as the global language. The world position of English language today, much to the discomfiture of some Britain who find the loss of historical linguistics preeminence unpalatable. The USA has nearly 70% of all English mother tongue speakers in the world, excluding Creole varieties. Creole varieties, that means these are the English. In case of USA, the population of USA consists the 70% first language speakers of this world. At the end of this class, we will also understand how many people of the world use English language. How many people of the world use English as the first language? We will also know that. And we will, as well as we will also know that how many people of the world use English as second language or foreign or international language. But in case of primary language or the first language user, 70% English language user, they live in USA, United States of America. And such dominance with its political economic underpinnings currently gives America a controlling interest in the way the language is likely to develop. So this political and economic dominance of American English or America has influenced English language to gain its global status, global lingua franca. How then we may summarize this complex situation? In this regard, US linguist Brach Kachru, 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 has suggested that We think of the spread of English around the world as three concentric circles. Kachru comes up with three circles, and this is called Kachru's model of English language user. And this model represents different ways in which English language has been acquired and is currently used. Although not all countries fit neatly into this model, it has been widely regarded as a helpful approach. What is the approach? That is the Kachru's model of concentric approach. What it is? Kachru, Kachru has talked about three circles of using English language. The first circle is the inner circle that refers to the countries where English is the first language or the primary language. This is called the inner circle according to Kachru's model. And which are the countries? The USA, the UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. These 5 countries, actually Ireland is included in the UK. So these 5 countries are within the inner circle of English language users, according to Kachru. Apart from this inner circle, next circle, the second circle is the outer circle or extended circle. And this circle, English is non-native setting where the language has become part of the country's chief institutions, plays an important second language role in a multilingual setting. It includes, that means in these countries, English language is used as second language. And already we know the definition of second language. And which are the countries? These countries include Singapore, India, Malay, and over 50 other territories. Territories means the smaller part of, not the countries. So grossly, Singapore, India, Malay, and other 50 islands we can call it. In this area, English is used as the second language. That means important language. However, these countries are multilingual. That means in India, we see nearly 33 languages are used. However, English got hegemony in using among these 33 languages. Same thing will be happening in Singapore. Already we have discussed a little bit earlier that in Singapore we see Malay language, we see Tamil language, we see Chinese language. However, English language got dominance, and English language has become a important way of communication, especially in administration, legal sites, education, higher education, and also in media and press. This is by Kachru's model. It is called second circle or the outer circle or extended circle. Apart from this, another circle, that is the third circle, it is called expanding or extending circle. And these are the nations where English has been recognized as the important as an international language, though they do not have a history of colonization by members of the inner circle, or they have given English any special administrative status. This country includes China, Japan. China was not a colony of Britain or America. Japan was not a colony of Britain or America. Greece, Poland, same thing. They were not the colony of the inner circle, that means USA or UK. However, in these areas, English language has gained importance for international communication. So English, the status of English language in this area is either international language or foreign language. And this circle is called expanding circle or extending circle. So these three circle has been prescribed by Kachru's model. In these areas, that means in the third areas, English is taught as a foreign language. The term expanding reflects its origin in the 1980 decades. Today, with English recognized virtually everywhere, a tense change to expand circle would better reflect the contemporary scene. So this is the third circle. So the first circle where English is the first language and 5 countries are there within this circle. That means USA, UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Second circle where English is used the second language. That is Singapore, India, Malaya. And third circle or extending circle is uh, the is included within the countries where English is used as the international language or a foreign language. This is according to Kachru's model. There are some 75 territories in which English has held or continues to hold a special place as a member of either the inner or the outer circle. These are given a single alphabetic list below table 1 along with the estimate of the number of speakers. The national population figures are estimated in 2002. L1 stands for the people who have the variety of English as the first language or mother tongue. So the next time we will see a table where L1 stands for the first language and L2 stands for the variety of the second language. Where I have been unable to find any relevant data, the figure for L1 or L2 is missing. List of this kind contains all kinds of hidden assumptions and they are also to be carefully interpreted. In particular, we should note the following points. Inner circle, USA, UK, and the number of population is 320 to 380 million. Outer circle, India, Singapore, 300 to 500 million. And expanding circle, that is China and Russia, 500 to 1,000 million people. So this is the three circle according to Braj Kachru. You see that from the inner circle, the expanding circle is nearly 3 times. There is no single source of statistical information on this language total. And okay, we will not read this. This is the table 1, you see, and the name of the countries are set in alphabetically. American Samoa, the population 2001. And out of the population, first language user 2000, second language user 65,000 English language. Bermuda, first language, second language. Bahamas, first language, second language. Bangladesh, L2, not L1. In case of Bangladesh, there is no first language user. So this is the uh, 2 crore and 35 lakhs people use English as their second language, according to the population 2001. So in this way, we will see Canada, the first language and the second language user. You see Hong Kong, India, first language. Okay, in India, you see also first language user of English language and the second language. Ireland, this is the scenario. Malaysia, first language and second language. New Zealand, only first language, L1, not L2. Sri Lanka, first language and second language. United Kingdom, first language and second language. Look here, first language this, first language user and second language user like this. UK, United States, first language and L1 and L2. In this way, the scenario that is 223 crore people use English language all over the world, according to the calculation done in 2001. And among this, 132 crore, they use English as their first language, and 32 crore, they use first language, and the second language, 43 crore people all over the world, they use English as the second language. This is the scenario of English all over the world. Okay, so where no linguistic estimate is available, I used an indirect method based on the percentage of a population over the age of 25 who had completed their secondary and further education, and the assumption being, so this is the situation how the estimate is done. The notion of a variety of English referred to above includes standard Pidgin and Creole varieties of English. This is why in certain countries the usage total in the list are much higher than that would be expected. In Nigeria, for example, large number thought to be well over 40% of the population use Nigerian Pidgin English as the second language. So this is the scenario of English language all over the world. The linguistic justification of this approach is that these varieties are indeed varieties of English as opposed to French, and are usually related to standard English along a continuum. On the other hand, because of the ends of the continuum may not be mutually intelligible, it could be argued that we need not keep a standard English total separate from the Pidgin and Creole language. So this is the scenario. Sometimes English is an official or joint official languages of a state, its status being defined by law, as in the case of India, Ireland, and Canada. So English is the official or joint official language. That means in India, you can communicate either in Hindi or in English language. But in case of Bangladesh, you can't communicate official communication in English language, because this is not established. This is established in law by law that you should communicate in Bengali language. But in India, it is established by law that you can communicate either in Hindi language or in English language. And same situation we see in Ireland and Canada. And sometimes it may be the sole and the dominant language for historical reason, but without official status, as in the case of the USA or the UK. So it's very interesting that in UK there is no official language. In USA there is no official language. However, the tendency is that all people make communication in English. Okay, but it is not established by the state law that the people are bound to communicate in English language in USA and UK. So it is a very interesting information we have got. In a few instances, English has not lost the formal status in one's head, though it still plays an important role in the community. In many cases, its standing is less certain, coexisting with the local languages in a relationship which shift with time and social function. So this is the scenario of English language. Finally, we should bear in mind that the notion of a special place as reflected in the list is one which relates entirely to historical and the political factors. This has led some linguists to argue that such a list presents a picture of the present day world which does not wholly reflect socio-linguistic reality. To make a language official may not mean very much in real terms. For example, English is probably represented in Rwanda and Burundi is very comparable OS, but Rwanda is in the list, but Burundi is not, only because the former has made a political decision to give the language a special status. Okay, so some political decision sometimes influence the usage of English language within a country. The total of 329 million represent a conservative estimate of those who have learned English as their first language. So 329 million people, they have learned English as their first language. The total would be increased if we know that first language figures of every country, especially in such areas as West Africa, where it is known how many use of variety of English as the first language. Some reference book such as World Alumni and Anthologue seem to take a more inclusive stance in this respect, citing as many of 450 million as a grand total at present. Total 430 million people all over the world use English as the second language. And in others, notably in India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Ghana, Malaysia, Philippines, Tanzania, which had a combined total of over 462 million people in 2002. Even a small percentage increase in the number of the speakers, though thought to have reasonable rather than a fluent command of English over considerably expand the L2 grand total. It is in any case now well ahead of the L1 total, where whether or not Pidgin or Creoles are included. No count has been taken in the list of the third category of the English language referred to above. The members of the expanding circle who have learned English as a foreign language. And the third circle, especially, we have got the idea that nearly the third circle is 3 times larger than the first circle. It means the number of English language users who use English as the first language is 1/3 of the population who use English as the foreign language. Here too, estimate for the total number of these speakers vary enormously because as with the second language speakers, everything depends on just how great a command of English is considered acceptable to count as a speaker of English. A criterion of native speakers like fluency would clearly produce a relatively small figure, including every beginner would produce a relatively large one. So how, in case of a foreign language user, so there is no parameters to judge that whether he or she can speak in English language or not. Fluency is the matter, or the grammatical accuracy, or the other things. And for this reason, it is a little bit tough to determine the number of foreign language users of English. A widely circulated British Council estimate, more informed than most, as it has based on the reports of the numbers attending courses and taking examination, as well as market intelligence provided by its English 2000 project, has referred to a billion, that is 1,000 million people engaged in learning English. So apart from the capacity that the people, they can use English language, they can communicate in English language. However, the British Council uh, gave us a number that nearly 1 billion people all over the world are learning English language nowadays. And if it is included to the third circle, in this regard, the third circle uh, might be much larger than the inner circle and the first circle. That figure needs to be interpreted cautiously because it includes all learners from beginner to advanced. If we set a criterion, a medium level of conversational competence in handling domestic subject matter, then we might accept some 3/4 of the total to be counted as the speakers of English as a foreign language, say 70, 750 million. However, there need to be only small variation in percentage estimated in the more populous countries to produce a large effect on the figures. So no one knows the proficiency realities in China, for example. Okay. So many people use English in China, but how you will determine the proficiency level? Whether they can communicate in English only in verbal communication or in written communication. So in this regard, there is still a gap of calculating the number of foreign English language users. That means the English language user who use English as the foreign language or the international language. Faced with such notable variation in which people with particular political agenda can argue for English being stronger or weaker, a cautious temperament will use average of the most recent estimate that this produces a grand total of 1,500 million speakers from all sources, approximately 750 million first and the second language speakers, and an equivalent number of speakers of English as the foreign language users. This figure permits a convenient summary, given that the world population passed the 6 billion mark during the 1990 decades. It suggests that approximately 1 in 4 of the world population are now capable of communicating to a useful level of English. Okay, so in 1999, the world population crossed 6 billion. And if we calculate the overview of the world population, how many people of the world now can use English, that is the 1 in 4. That means 1/3 of world population now are very much capable of making verbal and written communication in English language. This is the scenario of English language that make English language the global lingua franca. And day by day, the number is increasing. Two comments must immediately be made about this or any similar conclusion. First, if 1/4 of the world's population are able to use English, then 3/4 are not. So this is the analysis. That means out of the 6 billion people, 150 crore, they can use English language. That means 450 crore people, they can't use English. This is the analysis. Nor do we have to travel far into the hinterland of a country, away from the tourist spot, airports, hotel, restaurant to encounter this reality. Actually, is this data is right that this 3/4 of the world populations can't use English language? In this regard, that is David Christian has come out with another argument that if you visit a tourist spot all over the world, if you visit a restaurant in a foreign country, that means you will encounter the reality that he or she can communicate in English. So if you take it granted that the number of English language user might be more larger. Populist claim about the universal spread of English does need to be kept firmly in perspectives. Second, there is evidently a major shift taking place in center of gravity of the language. So we should consider the other practical scenario before coming the conclusion that how many people of the world can use English language nowadays. From the time in 1960 decades, when the majority of the speakers were thought to be first language speakers, we now have a situation there are more people speaking it as the second language and many more speaking as it as the foreign language. So in 1960 decades, if we consider the data, if we go back to 1960 decades, at that time, the first language user of English language were the majority portion. But in 2001, we have got the estimated that only, that means the first circle is 300, second circle is 500, and the third circle is 1000. That the scenario has been reversed. That means second language user is more than the first language user, and the foreign language user is much more than the first language user. So if we combine these two later groups, the ratio of native and non-native is around 1:3. So if we take this data, that the if we take 4 English speaking person, out of them 1 use English as the first language and 3 use English as the second language or foreign language. Moreover, the population growth rates, another interesting point to note over there, that the population growth in areas where English is the second language is about 2.5 times. And in areas where it is the first language, so that the differential is steadily increasing. Another point, David Kirschel has pointed that the population of the population growth rate of UK and USA is less than the population growth rate of India and China, where English is the second language. David Gradle suggests that the proportion of the world's population who have English as the first language will decline from over 8% in 1950 to less than 5% in the 2050. This is the family tree based on the model of Peter Stevenson, the way the English is spread all over the world, showing the influence of the two main branches of American, the British English, English, American, British, America, USA, Canada, and these are the countries. These are the origin of American English, and this circle, these are the British circle. So here, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, and also, so the British circle also entered into this area as well. So the Philippine, Hawaii. Okay, so this is the circle of English, British and American English. And the table 2 that we had been talking about, the population growth rate. You see Australia, in case of Australia, English is the first language. Population growth rate 1.1. Canada 0.1. New Zealand 0.8. UK 0.4. USA 1.2. Average 0.8. The population growth rate of this English speaking country. But Cameroon 2.6. India 1.7. Malaysia 2.5. Nigeria 2.8, and the Philippines 2.4. That means the average 2.4. So the population growth rate of these countries where English is used as the second language is much more than, nearly 3 times than the population growth of the country where English is used as the first language. So this table also gives us the idea that the English language user who use English as the second language is increasing day by day. So the scenario of Kachru's model will be uh, expanded later on if it continues. And in 2050, you see that here uh, less than 5% of the 2050. So the situation is without precedent for an international language. Much will depend on what happens in the countries with the largest population, notably China, Japan, Russia, Indonesia, and Brazil. So what will be the scenario of English language next or in the days ahead? In this regard, we can say that it depends on the linguistics decision of the country, especially the most populous country of the world, notably China, Japan, Russia, Indonesia, and Brazil. So, if the people of this country uh, use English in the more uh, notable way in the days ahead, then the global lingua franca, English, will sustain its position next day. Or if not, English will not retain its global status. No other language has spread around the globe so extensively. But as we have seen in chapter 1, what is impressive is not so much the grand total, but the speed with which expansion has taken place since the 1950 decades. So this expansion of English language especially spread all over the world after 1950 decades. That means when after the Second World War. In 1950, the case of English as the world language would have been no more than pleasurable. 50 years on, and the case is virtually unassailable. What happened in these 50 years, a mere eye blink in the history of a language, to cause such a massive change of stature? So, answer to this question, we must look at the way modern society has come to use and depend on the English language. So, English language, we have uh, come at the end of this session. That is, according to Kachru, American linguists, he has commented three circles of English language. The first circle, where English language is used as the first language, and the countries include in this list, that is USA, UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. And apart from this, he also called about the second circle. And in the second circle, we see the countries where English is used as the second language, just like Singapore, India, and Malay. And in the third circle, or expanding circle, where English language is used as the foreign language or international language. And we have also noticed that the number of first language users of English is one third of the total language user. That means 300 million people use English language as the first language, nearly 600 million people use English as the second language, and nearly 1,000 million people of the world use English language as the foreign language or international language. However, another ratio that has come before us, that is the population growth of the country where English language is used as the second language, is larger than the population growth of the country where English is used as the first language. For example, the population growth of Asian countries is nearly 3 times more than the population growth of USA and UK. So In this regard, what will be the scenario of English language? Whether the English language will be able to sustain its global status in the days ahead, in the successive days? So this question comes before our mind, and the answer is that it depends on the linguistic decision taken by the most populous country of the world, that is China, Russia, Brazil, Philippines. So if this countries take decision of using English language as a language of international communication, then English language will gain its status as a global language in the days ahead. Or if it is not so, then English language will lose its power. However, the present scenario shows that the people all over the world still are very much prone to use English language for global economics, for international business and trade, for international communication, for international business, for international tourism, and everything. So, if there is no drastical change of linguistic approach done by the most populous country like Russia, China, Brazil, and Philippines, then English will be the global language next in at the time ahead. So this is the end of today's class. So if you have any question, then we will answer the question next time.